Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 173. I'm doing a quick intro. A couple years ago, back in I think April, May of 2021, I had Carry Howell on, and yeah, it's been a couple of years, about 2.5 years, and we reconnected and we made this happen. This was recorded like almost a month ago, about the middle of October, Friday the 13th. And I love Carrie a lot. We really had a good time when we did this the first time, and also a great time the second time around. I was really grateful for the opportunity for him to come and share again, and just for us to connect. So, without further ado, this is my talk with Carrie Howell.
So that's a little recap of where I've been at. But yeah, man, what's going on with you? So because you used to live in like Virginia, right, or something, Virginia Beach, and then
Yeah, West Virginia,
okay,
just south of Pittsburgh. And yeah, like I said, last time we talked, I guess I began an evolution. Uh,
mm-hmm.
and that was one of the most incredible times when we met, where I was really gathering information. I was taking in people, listening, and doing a lot of like self-study and healing. And I put a lot of that to work. I was working full time. And then I just found an outlet through social media and was trying to put that out there for others, motivation, because it was working for me and it was giving me a place to show up every day, or on a regular, showing up for myself. Um, and I could see the changes I was making personally, and I could start to see it became more, physical. And then now I had the opportunity to really bring together a new family, and the opportunity to move south came. So I moved here, and it's been still engaged in the mental health, but now a physical, the physical is still going on. So I just came from the gym. I did a podcast before I came on here. So it's a part of it. It's been real healthy, learning new, incredible skills that I just, for the longest time, didn't know we lack as a society, I feel, because I see people struggling and I wonder why. And I feel it's the lack of this communication. And I think it's because of some of the traumas that we've suffered, that puts us in the back seat when we need to be driving and we're not. And the conversation is being driven sometimes by other people, and we're just watching it go by. And sometimes there's opportunities to get missed because we're not, maybe not confident, but we're not stepping into power. We're not completely powerless, but something has put us in that position to not, maybe take advantage of that or sit back and just let it slide. So I've kind of learned to drive the bus. And the communication, like you were saying, with the working with the foster kid, that's amazing. It's so you open up the lines of communication, you start to build trust. I started to build trust within myself when I opened up the lines of communication to someone close to me. So when I was able to do that, I could start to really trust myself with what I was going to say, or believe in myself enough that I could say what I needed to say, that it wouldn't be a direct reflection of who I am now. It is like an old shadow, or it's an old version of who we were, but we have to confront it. And it's powerful when you confront it with somebody, but it's about the communication, build the trust with yourself, and then it starts to show. So we start to exude the trust, start talking to people, and the rest kind of starts falling into place. And I've noticed the gravitation of types of people to the mentality, to the attitude, how you can really change a conversation with people, or people are like, man, I got to go get involved in this conversation because they hear you talking and they want to know what's going on. It's a vibe, an energy that we're possessing. We've always possessed. We all have it, but we were holding it back. And like I said, I see you start your glow yourself. Everything has started to change, and we can now keep that going because, at least in my perspective, I've learned what it takes to get the ball rolling. We know what it's like when the ball rolls over us, when we stop doing what we were doing, right? When we get lax and we get hit and we get run over. We've learned to catch up to the ball, right? You got to learn to run, catch up. And when we get to that point, we're strong enough to do so. We get brave enough too, maybe to try to conquer that ball and balance it, or get around in front of it again, get running and keep in front of the ball, or get on the ball and really put our energy toward where we want to go. And we start navigating in that direction. It's not the momentum we're not being carried away anymore, right? Bad situations, bad people, or bad influences can carry us away in the tide. Right. So now we've learned to control our own path.
Yeah, well, it's cool to have any kind of like, sure, there's things about social media that are not great, right? Like, scrolling kind of mindlessly, which can happen pretty quick, right? Or, um, you know, kids having phones is a whole thing because it's like their brains are developing. And so, but to have kind of your like, I had a video camera when I was 17 in Fort Collins, Colorado, and this is before phones. So it was like literal high eight tapes. This is like 2002, right? And I documented like high school, like with my friends. Now, I don't have a lot of that footage. I have some of it. I wish I had all of it, but I've gotten it digitized. But it's funny to have like to even watch some of that stuff. Like, wow, that was me. I'm coming up on like 20 years after high school, almost 2024 will be 20 years, but to have a podcast and to be like, oh, I started it when I was kind of doing okay. And then I struggled. And then, like, even when I talked to you, I was just starting to kind of come back to life a little bit with my life. And that's why I was kind of doing the podcast. And I was doing stuff with Nami again. And I was making some new friendships. We talked about Celebrate Recovery. And then now, even talking about this job, I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have been able to do this a couple years ago. I don't think so, right? And it's not like in a, hey man, just believe in yourself. Like it's no, it's like
Right.
there's these different phases and cycles and seasons where um but your whole thing about communication and talking, it's like you just document yourself. You talk about what's in front of you at that time. So hopefully your story can change. And so it's cool to go back and go, oh, I was kind of talking about, my dad a lot, or this girl, or this thing. And so, sure, not everybody
Yeah.
has the experience of like, I've done 170 episodes now, and probably 60% of that is talking to other people, right? And it's like when we did your episode, it was like episode 48. So it's like, whoa, that's a lot of talks. And it's not like a numbers thing, like I have 500 episodes, whatever, right? And there's people who just they haven't given up. They're just like, yeah, I'm on episode 1,000 and I'm just getting started. But anyway, it's fun to like keep going, and to
Yep.
reward yourself, keep going, and then play it back and maybe be embarrassed a little bit, like, oh, I can't believe I said like 50 times,
Yeah.
or you know what I mean? Like, why do I keep referencing I say the same three jokes, or whatever, right? And it's like, well, that's just
Right.
part of who you are. Like you do that when you're not on the podcast.
Right.
you
Right. But
know,
that
so
honesty that we can see within ourselves, if we
yeah.
can be honest with ourselves, we can start to, like you said, make those little changes and not be so embarrassed because that's literally who we are. Yeah, we're repeating things until we realize they're obviously not working because sometimes we don't see the signs or we're being in denial. But if we start trying to get out of that, we can be like, hey, man, I'm going to try something new. You never know. Next thing you know, it is next, pot number 1,000. And yeah, you've got all
Yeah.
kinds of things.
So you also said something that's a theme, which is, you know, you kind of were talking about like, I think maybe the victim mindset, like, oh, these people are doing this or at that. Uh, and then you were talking about like what you just said, like doing new things. And I think like that's important because it's like, why do we not do new things, or why do we not try new things or get around different people? And I think I've had some influential friends and a book club that I go to on Sundays that I kind of started with some friends, and we just been going through different books, and it's really more like it's all men, not that like women can't come, but
Right.
a men's group, pretty much, but it's awesome, man. It's very deep, and it's like very uh, something I look forward to every week. But it's kind of like, yeah, how do you like have new experiences? And I think in the mental health space, that's a challenge for people. They get used to um, maybe over talking sometimes about like the symptoms and normalizing the illness. And I'm not saying that there's not a place for that. I think more recently I've just been like, I don't know if I need to keep talking about that. Maybe it's like, don't bring up your dad, or like, don't bring up the past, not in a denial way, which I think you said that word, but like, or you said it on the one that we did, but like, how do you, like, you moved to Florida, right? That's a new experience. And so what's
Right.
going on with that? I think you understand what I'm trying to say. Like, how do you get into some new space of living and like,
Well, first, it's
yeah.
personal courage. Even in like, we can take a hobby, for instance, like everything that I've got kind of going on, behind
Yeah,
me. I was
there's
working
your
on
your
stuff.
model stuff, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's just personal courage. You start there to take those steps to find something new, whatever that might be. You already have the observation. You're using observation. You saw, hey, I'm telling these same old jokes. Instead of being hard on yourself, you can go find something, maybe some new content if you'd like, because you want to improve.
yeah, yeah,
And it's not like you're not trying to say, oh, well, that's just who I am. Well, you're speaking that into existence. You're manifesting that as to who you really are. So I've, someone really very close to me that tells me to not limit myself. So as soon as I say, well, I always do that, or I always fuck things up, are you
right.
not limiting yourself? So this is where that starts, where you start changing the way you talk about things, and then start trying to take on some of those small tangible experiences that you might not have done, like go places you don't normally go. So this situation in particular for me is special because I came to a completely new place. So I've got nobody that I know. So I'm meeting new people. But if you're looking for, new people to hang out with, you've got to go to where it's going to be and hang out with new people and do those things you want to do. I said want. I don't care if you're good at it. If you want to be a good scale modeler, come hang out with me, hang out with my people, and watch us, and just start doing it.
Yeah,
You're instantly people go, oh, I can't do that. I'm scared. That's what stops everybody. It's fear. It's the lack of knowledge of just go and experience it. And at the end of the experience, you're either going to know you can do it and you'll go further, know that you can kind of do it and you can get better, or you just don't like it and you don't want to do it. It's really
yeah,
simple, but it starts with doing it. You got to
yeah,
go do it.
yeah. You don't like it, and
But
you
you got to
don't want
believe in yourself. The people we're surrounded by too,
to. Yeah.
because some people will be like, "Oh yeah, you won't like that," and a lot of people will say those things to you because they're already jealous. They're already stealing your thunder.
Well, or they're not willing to do the uncomfortable thing too. So it's like a projection. Like, well, did it work out for me when you go on the Meetup app and you go find a thing on Saturday and it's like, okay,
That's
well,
huge. You said
that's you.
projection.
Yeah, yeah,
You got to touch on that again because some people will. You're trying to have like you go to the gym, and someone's going to be like, "Oh man, they might have something to say because they have a feeling inside of themselves that we just triggered. And then they project that onto you through their words. And a lot of people don't understand what that means. They're telling you their story by inputting you into it, and it makes you feel a certain way. Reverse that, and they're actually telling you what they feel about themselves inside. Like, oh, you always go to the gym. You're some kind of gym rat. That you're gonna die in the gym because that's what they're thinking in their mind, and that's the first thing that's being projected versus an objective view of what's really going on. Be like, man, yeah, going to the gym looks really good on you. I see a change. If I'm not getting that feedback from my people, they're not my people. It's really that simple. And if I have somebody that's encouraging, discouraging me, they're not my people because I made a choice to go to the gym. If you're saying, oh man, fuck that, you are not my dude. You're not my person. End of story. Because I already decided to do something. If you got someone that starts cutting you down instantaneously, even if it's your buddy, maybe he's really not your buddy.
Yeah.
maybe we've been friends for a long time, but you shouldn't support my idea to say, I'm going to start going to the gym, Bobby. Like, I'm going to go try because I see Jimmy over there. He's been going and he looks pretty good, man. Like, I would like that too, so I can get stronger. It's not about looking good. Maybe it is, but for me, it was health. And I feel incredibly strong and powerful. And that feeling of my health, my divine masculine is very well intact because of that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, well, the very beginning of our talk from whatever you just said, like 2.5 years ago, basically, right? That's a lot of time, and then it goes by fast too. You're like, oh, but the thing that we started out, you were talking about like humility, or I said humility, and you said something like you're like, I've fallen on my face so many times, and I'm still here. I'm like still doing this life thing, right? And that was kind of the beginning of the episode, right? And just talking about how important that is to try to learn from things. And the thing you just said, where you're like, you said with a coach, oh, when you're like, oh, I always F it up, or I always, right? That word always is like, it's like right there, right? And it's like, if you really think about it, you could screw up a lot, and it would feel like always. Like, everybody's got a story, right? It's like, oh, well, I've been homeless,
Right.
15 times, right? Or I've been in the hospital so many times. And then it's like, but there's one thing, probably more than one thing, that you're doing right, or you're doing well, or you're moving towards hope and life and community. And it's kind of like, yeah, just screw your list, dude. Screw your like list of always. I'm not saying it's so simple, like just turn it off, but
Right.
we
Right.
can get stuck in um telling us
Habits. They're habits.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a habitual story that somebody else told us sometimes.
Yeah.
And we've just replayed this shit. And even after those people are gone, we keep replaying it, especially if we're still surrounded by the same kind of people that believe in that mindset. And that's where they will continue to hold you
like
down when you
for
break.
20
Yep.
years or something.
But if you break free from that, like sometimes you break free, it changes everything.
Yeah, no, it's cool, man. I love hearing you say that, because I'm been learning that from this book club thing and other friends in my life and people, where it's like, taking this job or moving. Those are things that I think in the story of bipolar, or the story of, oh, I just got out of the hospital, like I don't think I can handle that. I don't think I can handle that much change, which is a legitimate concern, right?
Yeah.
There's a difference
Too much could be bad.
Yeah, there's a difference between jumping into something that could maybe shipwreck you or something, right? But that fear thing, and the thing you said about personal courage, like, but it's like, well, what if it's awesome? What if this job turns out to be like your career, or this town is where you meet your spouse, right? Or whatever. And you would, or the thing you go to on the Saturday night is your future, or like the friends you make on your one random, like, I'm going to just go do this weird thing today. And then those people become
Right.
like your whole entire future, kind of almost like a movie or a TV show or something, where you're like, you see people. Anyway, so it's cool, man. But yeah, what have you been up to? What do you because I was reading like the bio when you were on, and I think you were saying you were like a life coach or something. Are you still doing that, or what are you doing? Like, what are you up to?
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, that's what I
Oh
was
yeah,
doing. We were working on
Did I
some.
have that right? Oh,
Yeah, pretty much.
okay,
Yep,
cool. Yeah,
absolutely. So
yeah.
yeah, I was doing like mentoring, and I was during the pandemic working with people that were suffering, depression, and I figured out how I was doing it, and this is where the Model Rocketeer was born. And
Okay.
I started this Facebook group. So anybody out there that builds scale models, you can come find us on Facebook at Kit Bash Gundam, and it's blown up to 4,000 members. And
Nice.
I have a 24-hour chat that runs within the messenger that people are posting photos daily, 24 hours a day. So it's giving them a place to do it. It was kind of like, I'm this big kid, I'm this nerd. I was like, how do I enjoy this with other people, especially living in West Virginia where I was at, there was nothing. So I created it, and I filled a niche, and now it's growing. So since then, the coaching practice part of that, I switched over to just using as a social media, I guess, propellant, to just kind of go with what I was doing through my healing process. And then I started another company and rebuilt that into working with, like, in marine services, detailing boats and cleaning. But it still literally stayed within the marketing or affiliate marketing and graphic design world. So I just kept working here on the Model Rocketeer brand. So I branded it and turned it into something pretty big and taken on some sponsors and affiliates that I market for. But I'm trying to use that brand as the ideals that I'm trying to embody. And that's this whole personal courage thing, to do something new and try it, and try to influence in the hobby industry. Just its positivity, its inclusivity. There's different groups for different types of people. Go find one. If you find yourself in one that you don't like, see your way out. It's really that simple, because we don't know until you try. Go try it out. And so this has kind of been the trial and error, and it just brought me to this. And now we're working in sales and trying to build this brand and just move forward with a family.
Nice, man. Yeah, well, we talked a lot in the other episode too about grief, and I'm sure you probably, your clientele, there's trauma, there's grief, there's like things from the past, and yeah, it's awesome, man, just to see, like, that was a really great conversation. I was just listening to what we talked about then, and now just to see you, to have both of us talk again, is that's like 90% of the game. It's like, just keep showing up. It's like, we're both still here, we're both still online.
Yep, exactly. And well, I'll tell you, I mean, we both look a little healthier. Like we got color back. There's a sparkle in our eyes. We're like, we're still showing up. We're still doing it.
Well, thank you. You for sure. I signed up for the Pomona 5K, which is next Saturday. And
right on.
I better start running this week, or it's a run/walk. So
okay.
Yeah,
right.
like,
It's a jogger.
You're looking. I can see your physique kind of.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm like, you're looking like you are. I don't know what you're doing, CrossFit or weights or
weightlifting,
functional patterns or something. But you got it, man. So
yeah, I appreciate that. But I am. I've always been really athletic and outgoing. So
yeah,
I just started getting the gym, and that really helped with aggression. So I'm a fire sign. Let's say you put that out there for some people that understand it in that way. I'm a fire sign. I'm very active, and that's how I bleed off that energy. It's how I produce energy. It's very active based. So I got into the gym. My significant other really encourages it and helps promote that. So when I get in there, that's where I get to put that fire to work,
nice.
And it feels good.
Yeah. What's your routine? Like, what do you do? I mean,
I don't really. I guess not have.
I guess, like, routine doesn't mean same thing every day. It just means, like, you're going to the gym, or you're like, hey, 4 times a week I'm doing something.
Right. So I usually go to the gym probably 4 or 5 times a week.
Okay. Wow. Nice. Okay.
Just because we, as a family, that's how we function, and so we just go, and it's just a matter of a simple routine of my weight training, and then targeting certain body parts that I know that I need to work on, that I feel I need to work on, and then just overall training. So I'm tall, so I work on like a lot of core work, sit ups, and then I do a lot of work on my legs, because we spend a lot of time walking. I don't know. I'm just kind of like that. Back to that military mindset where I need to have a strong, functional body again, and that's where I go. So I'm in there, bench pressing, proper mechanical movement and enough weight it's a strain, and then put it all in there and get it done. So it's really basic, but I kind of just take a lot of information from where I learn across the internet, like we do, or I'll sit and watch people in the gym and like, man, I like that workout looks cool. Like I like what they're doing. I want to test it out or change the movement a little bit. Because you can feel when you go to pick up a weight, it's like, oh man, I like that feeling like in my back of doing rows. It's like, for me, I call it the lawnmower. So you pick up a 50-pound dumbbell.
Yeah, I've done that.
Lawnmower,
There's
start the lawnmower.
The lawnmower.
But it comes in handy. But I was like, I've got tennis elbow that developed over from an injury in the oil field, and I can feel it now when I go to grab heavy weights.
Yeah.
Because I'm moving into that position where they're not significant, but they're getting heavier. So if I'm curling 100 pounds, I can feel it. It starts hurting in my elbow. But it's not bad. I just know that I'm alive. I'm not. Obviously, we're not bulletproof, or we got things that'll happen to us. But I look back and be like, I remember those days working, and they were good days. Hard work, good money, good times. At times,
Right.
but
Right.
paid the price for that. So one day it's gonna hurt real bad.
Yeah, man, we got to try to last long. It's like.
But I quit smoking like completely as a part of this journey.
Really? Okay, nice. Like cigarettes, cigars?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because I did. I smoked cigarettes, and then I was never really a big cigar smoker, but I was able to curb that with vaping at least, and not at the capacity that I smoked cigarettes. So it makes it really much nicer. It's cleaner. It's not a dirty habit. Like if anybody's a smoker, I'm not knocking you, man. I smoked for 20 years. I started when I was 16. I'm 42, and I quit a year and a half ago.
Oh, man.
But
yeah, honestly,
it's a dirty habit.
Yeah, I like to smoke like socially is what I say, which is like when I'm at the bar and stuff. But it's gotten I like to go really it feels like it's like a once a week thing. Like usually my room and I just go to Lordsburg and hang out and get food. But yeah, still it's kind of become like a thing that's like I could give this up. I probably should, and so it comes in. There's times where it's like I've never done the vape things. I think I've been too like I think I would just do that too much, So that's cool that you gave it up.
Right on. It was just was looking at the cons that I didn't quite like. It was just the mess. But I started working out, and I was still smoking, and I could feel that difference. And I was like, dude, I've got to stop, because I started running. I was out jogging.
I was like, yeah.
And that's what made me give it up. I was like, so we're talking about, being adults here. Everybody's adult here. It depends on where you're at in the world. You're in California, so the marijuana laws and stuff like that. And we're in that age, so that's something that I partake in. I won't lie. It's I think it's healthy. It can be in moderation. Use it wisely. That's my disclaimer. It's not a miracle drug, and if you're not mentally equipped to know what you're doing, it could probably cause you problems. But that's where I put my smoke time now. If I do that, and I won't smoke tobacco papers. It'll be, like hemp papers. Because I'm a blunt guy, but I like the hemp, like toasted hemp wrapped instead.
Okay.
To get that same feeling. So I just try to avoid tobacco in general. But if I was going to have a indulgence, that's where I put that smoke indulgence is, intaking carbon monoxide by smoking, joints or blunts or something kind of thing in celebration or for medicinal uses. So that's the only smoke time that I put in when it comes to that.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, one of the things too we were talking about before was sort of recovery, right? Like in these meetings, and at the time I was going to celebrate recovery. Well, our church called it it still is around, so it's not like
celebrate recovery. Yes.
Yeah, I would call it Celebrate Life, and I've definitely been around meetings for a while, but is that something that's still like you used to do that? Is that still a part of your journey, like going to meetings, or that was like kind of a thing of the past? Like you needed it then, but
it was kind of it served its purpose, and then from that point on, it was just I got into so many more other activities that I just didn't continue doing it. And at any point, I found myself in a negative situation that I'd learned about. I was always just moving on to whatever to find what I wanted that brought me my peace. So I always thought of it in my mind, though, and it never goes away. What I learned in those rooms about how to keep yourself safe personally, keep yourself safe. And once you do that, the ones you care about most are going to be safe. And that already puts the lens on who's not safe and what am I doing that's not safe. So if you feel that, there's probably some different decisions that could be made in our lives. But that's what I learned, and I will always tout that celebrate recovery. NAAA taught me lessons I will never forget, and I will always repeat and teach.
Interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting thing because, and I've heard like other people on podcasts talk about sort of I feel like what you're saying is good. It's not sort of, it's almost like hopefully you get to sobriety where the community aspect is really good, but it's almost like the goal should be to like not go to the meetings. Like eventually, right now, obviously,
Right.
everyone, like at the beginning when you're struggling, it's like it can be a beautiful thing. People can go when they're not sober, but
Right.
I think it's like, I don't know, to stay and to keep going for like 20 years or something.
Right.
That feels like
Right.
to me, I'm like, I don't know about that. But you could say that with mental health support groups too. It's like, oh well, I have been
Right.
bipolar my whole life, and I'm like, I
Yep.
think we should find ways to like move on from some of this eventually.
Right.
Like the
It
language
becomes
is
a
kind of,
crutch. It's like an enabling.
yeah,
Oh, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I'm bipolar, so I have to go to this meeting. And it becomes that hypochondriac effect in a way where they have to have it because that's what they do because they have something that someone told them. Not to discredit anybody's opinion because I like what you said, and that's how I thought of it. I don't want to spend the rest of my life, going to these rooms to get my recovery. I was going there, and I was going to continue to go there as long as I needed to get all the tools and information I needed to not repeat what took me there the first time.
right.
Because it was
Yeah.
for me. Some people get court ordered or whatever. Mine was by choice, and I used that choice very consciously to do so because in NA, I was really fighting with a sponsor to pick somebody up and go through the steps of the book. And I was like, I didn't like the idea of having to have that person because I didn't, for one, was really willing to trust them because it's a very special individual journey. So I took it upon myself, buy the book, do it my damn self. Although I know I'm not trying to say that's the right way, but it was what I needed. And I
Yeah.
took all of that and learned it and tried. And when I felt powerful enough or whenever I knew that I was getting out, I could literally escape. So I saw it this way too. I was trying to be an entrepreneur. I wanted this. I'm not going to succeed and get any higher if I'm going to these, meetings all the time. Once I felt to a point where I was free and clear, and then I needed a new injection, right? So if I want to be a businessman, you go hang out with business people. I wasn't getting that in meetings. So you're only getting a specific level of consciousness, which is going to be related directly to that meeting: drugs, alcohol, awareness, and our ups and downs with the addiction that we fight and its consequences. We understand that pretty well. And if you're willing to really, really grab that shit by the balls and defeat that demon, you don't have to go back in there because you're not going to do it again. And those people aren't not always going to be there because, you see Billy doing good. 6 months later, he comes in there up because he just relapsed. Right. And then maybe that triggers me into a relapse. It could, instead of hanging out with the right people that are always just on such a higher track. Keep going up, keep going up. Maybe they have a story like we have too, that they were there once. That's how I felt about it. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but I just tried to get on the ball and roll that thing where I wanted it to go. And that's what it required.
Yeah, yeah, for
Three of
sure.
those.
It's a little bit of both because there is, I think, one of the steps is to give back and serve and come and do the coffee or lead the meeting. And there's some power in that. There's power in being of service once you sort of earn that. Like you get,
Right.
they're not going to have a guy that's sober a day like lead the meeting. Maybe Jesus's disciples, but yeah, but no, you know what I
Right.
mean. But like, but you're right. Like over time, I think the community part is powerful.
Right.
separate from some of the language where it's like, no, just move towards like sober community, which could be a struggle for people, right? It's like, oh, I only hang out with people that I like go, drink
Right.
with or whatever. It's like, well,
Right.
duh, yeah, everybody does that. But
Right.
get to a place where there's back to kind of what we were saying before, like new experiences or new,
Yep.
like you said, personal courage and but at the same time, lots of people are struggling, and I think we said this when we talked the first time that we're like we're both men, doing this thing, and there's most people on here have been women that I've had as guests. So no offense, I love women, but I'm like, but it's always special to have another guy be on the
Yeah.
podcast that's, 5 years older than me or whatever. We're close in age. So
But you're right. It is because we struggle with the same things that they do. Also, we were all programmed differently to just keep pushing forward and let that shit just what the fuck ever until you could not hold on any longer, literally. And
yeah,
it just like I saw in the older generations where it hardly took a toll because they were a lot harder.
right.
And it's dwindling, and we're the last of the what some people are calling that that strong-minded generation, where we can still handle it, but we've handled so much of it that it's come at a high cost, and now we're trying to give back because we've learned and we're healing, and we're watching this happen again to others, and we're fighting to at least open their eyes or whatever to it.
Yeah. I wonder too, like, I think the part that stood out to me the most, which I think is still a work in progress, so this is not like a past tense thing, is sort of the inventory or like the self forgiveness part, right? Which, can be a very religious idea, Christian idea, but stretches beyond just religion, right? I think the idea of, um, there's damage that can be done because fill in the blank, right? Because of the things that you've done. And it does come full circle back to some of these things we're talking about, which is like to go into new community, to be brave, you can't have shame, shame or guilt for how you kind of messed it up in the past, right? Like if you really have that with you all the time, it's hard to move forward.
Right.
But it's like one time I watched a TED talk where this lady was like, 5 ways to just let things go or something. And it wasn't ridiculous, but it was a little bit like if you're feeling stuck and you hear that, I think you can come to those meetings and be like, oh wait, so I have to go back to every single person that I screwed over and ask for forgiveness, and then also forgive myself for like, showing up drunk to my cousin's wedding, or whatever, right?
Right.
That's real stuff.
Yep,
But
it
it
is.
does have to do with these conversations of like, how do you move forward? So I wonder where that has kind of like played out in your life. Like, do you feel like you let go of the dumb stuff you've done? Or maybe that's not the right way to say it, but like, man, the pain that you've caused other people, right? Like, where are you with that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. That's exactly where that leads you. Is
Yeah,
understanding to give yourself some grace, forgive yourself. Because
right.
I talk about the whole what if effect. You can what if everything to death. And that's kind of the denial side of um, all this forgiveness that we're not giving ourselves. What if I would have done this? Or what if I would have done that instead? Yeah, hey, we can do this all day long, right? Our
Right.
imagination is endless. You can allow it to be.
Yeah, what if I had different parents, right? It's like,
Right.
well, dude,
That's not even fair because that starts a whole nother mental train in your head.
what if I
Like, you know what I mean? So
Sorry,
the
hopefully my
basic,
parents aren't listening. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah. No, I'm joking. But yeah,
but yeah, to
what
give
if
yourself
to
a little
death?
bit of
You were
grace
saying, yeah.
and start to forgive yourself. And if you, I mean, maybe not physically, you have to go out and do this to people or for them, but to take some time and write to yourself. You're writing yourself, if anything, because you're the only one that knows. You can't lie to yourself. effect. When you look in the mirror and they'd say, you got to go take a hard look in the mirror and go talk to yourself. There's a reason for that, because when you do, some people cannot look at themselves. They can't look at themselves and honestly tell themselves they love themselves or admit something that has, so that's a part of that, the real spiritual part of that. Because when you're able to do that, you can start to let that go, peel back the layers of childhood trauma, the things that we've done to hurt people. It is what it is. Learn the lesson and move on is the easy way of putting it blankly. And a lot of people are just like, wow, how is that it sounds so simple. It's not, it's really not. I promise that it's not, but it almost can be, because the first time you do it, you will feel that release and then you'll seek that. And then it becomes easy. It just gets easier and easier, because then you can just do it on the fly. You're just doing it on the fly. Be like, man, I'm so grateful, or for some reason, because then it goes from asking or begging for forgiveness to a grateful attitude for the situation that happened. Even the most horrible ones, I'm like, man, I'm glad that happened, because I would have never experienced that. Sometimes I wish I wouldn't have experienced that. Yeah, I get it. We can wish it to death, but I did. I had to. And because I have, take something away or stop crying about it kind of feeling. But I know that doesn't work either. That's the generation I came from. But if anything, use it for motivation. If you're gonna do something about it, use it for motivation. If you're gonna cry about it, get it over with, cry about it, but think through it, make it worth it.
Well, I think there's this, especially in the mental health space, depending on how much time you spend on social media or something, right? I think if something's simple, it's almost too good to be true, right? Like if someone's like,
Right.
oh, let it go. Well, that's too simple, And it's like, well, that still could work though, or if it's too complicated, right, then maybe we hide behind how complex something is, right? Like, oh, well, it's trauma and it's this. And it probably still is complicated because that's how we are as people, right? We have memories, we have emotions, and like the thing you just said, you're like, oh, I'm kind of glad that the bad thing happened. Some people could say the opposite, right? They could be like, well, only good things happen to me, I would be like a different person or a better person. And it's like, well, that doesn't really exist anywhere. Like
Right.
we're just in a world full of people who mess things up all the time. Government, leaders of nations, our own parents, our own selves. Like we
Right.
screw things up for ourselves. Like it's not just always someone else. But I've just found that maybe there's like an over identifying with the past, and that's kind of back to the theme of like your story. Your story is the things that you've done and screwed up, and it's like if you stay in that, then it's like, what about not talking about that stuff anymore? And like that's kind of seems to be like the hard thing to do. It's like just completely be
Yeah.
a different person, and maybe you go on social media and tell people about it, or maybe you don't.
Yeah, it's going to be different for everybody, but
Right.
yeah, you kind of just nailed it there. And I was really thinking about that. I was like, damn,
Yeah.
it really is. We all just sit there. We're just staring back at ourselves, wondering what to do. We're
Right.
asking ourselves what to do, and we're telling ourselves literally what to do. I feel our intuition tells us. Some are better than others, but still, the intuition doesn't lie to you, and we still sit there with it and don't do anything because we're scared.
Mhm.
It's habits, habituals. We are all programmed. It's sad that our parents our four parents were all somewhat programmed little by little, and then you see where it has filtered down. I'm just in that, like me especially, I'm in that lucky category of my father was a super hard ass, but my mother was amazing, and they were all taken away from me at a very young age. So I got to learn everything the hardest way possible, and now I get to go back to the very beginning and forgive myself for holding these grudges, and as that goes along, the rest of it just becomes easier.
Yeah.
But I had to rewrite the narrative because it was I'm always this or whatever, and that's not the case. It's like I'm just telling myself that.
Hmm.
So once I got back to that point, I could start seeing that I'm the one making up the always bullshit. It's not really even true.
Yeah, yeah. That word really stands out to me because I've done the same thing. It's like I'm always the bipolar person, or this is my story I'm living in. And I think
Right.
the only way you know that you're doing that would be possibly a therapist or a coach, or it's really community, right? You don't know you're doing it. Like I've had people just because it's like you're around them and they go, "Oh, you keep like saying that," and that takes that's really a way that I think people can love you, like just
Yeah.
gently. Like it's not like harsh. It's not like, "Hey, what do you keep repeating the same 10 things, man?" But I do think there's an element too of like when you're in the past, it's like sometimes that feels good. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, oh man, and
Comfort.
that's depending on what you're talking about, right? Like, oh
Right.
man, remember in high school when blah blah blah,
Yep.
blah, right?
Yep.
And that's like nostalgia. That's like
Yes.
you
The
can't.
comfort level,
Yeah,
though.
it's hard to get away from that sometimes. It's like that's what's made some
Yep.
people sometimes go like, oh, I have a horrible memory of my childhood. I don't remember anything, right? And then it's like, are you blocking it out or do you really don't remember? And then other people, like I feel like I've done that my whole life. I've been very like, I won't remember like what I read in a book, but I'll remember like where I was and the date, and I'm like, I don't know, is this like some kind of gift, But then,
What's the name of that book that my wife has? It's called "The Body Remembers the Score."
oh yeah, I have it on
All right, so
Audible.
it's not the mind we forget, but the
Yeah,
body
I've
doesn't.
listened to a little bit of it. Yeah, that's like the best book on trauma out there, is what people say.
Dude, it's
Yeah,
true, and that's a part of it because instead of the body is it's the
yeah,
mechanism,
remembering
it's
all
the
that.
vehicle
Yeah.
that the spirit resides in, right? Because this is how we function. So when we're in that comfort zone, nobody wants to get out of it. And that's where I make this joke. It's like, if the universe had not made me uncomfortable, would I have moved?
Hmm.
Right? No. So we're always resistant to change. We get comfortable and it's just nice because the routine, you wake up and you do this, this, this. You screw up the routine, it changes things.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can interject things into your routine. Um, so I think that's the proactive part of it is if you can observe it and then start making the gradual changes.
Hmm. Well, yeah, it still does take, to your quote, the personal courage, right? Like it takes courage to let go of things and then replace them with something new. Like
Right, right,
it's both.
absolutely.
It goes both ways. Like sometimes you do have to like kind of self control your thoughts and say like I'm not the thing you said about the always like I'm. I think especially I've been in hospitals and I've been in these experiences where I haven't felt in control of myself. That's a very common thing with depression, anxiety. Like something's coming at you and you don't have control. Okay, so that's a real thing. But is it possible to eventually, with like, you know what I mean, with a lot of work and a lot of help and a lot of these different things, can you get to a point where you do feel like you're in control? I hope so. You know what I mean? Like exactly, right? And if you
Yeah.
don't think that, then that is kind of like the definition of feeling stuck. Like, oh, I have no control over anything. That's not a real good, fun place
No.
to be in.
I've got a little trick for you I'd like to share about
Yeah,
how to beat that monster at first. So control. I
right.
know that feeling because I've had that feeling, but I don't haven't experienced it the way that some people like you just described. I'm never in control. Okay, so I know that's a real feeling. Dude, I'm not going to minimize that shit. We need to address that. But if you want to take control of your life, when you get up in the morning, it starts with gratitude. Be a gratitude, grateful you're alive because you don't have control of your own life, but you have control of your mentality that says, I'm grateful that I just woke the fuck up. So
Yeah,
we'll start with
exactly.
that. So that's
Yeah.
a semblance of some control that you have some power of how you feel. So let's start with the control of the feeling and then make your bed. Get the hell up, make your bed, get it done. You're in control. It's a little bit of control because even after the day, you get through the whole day and it goes to shit even, you come home to a clean bed. You're going to thank me because that right there is the last thing you see before you go to sleep or lay down or cry in it or whatever it is. It's made and it's comfortable. It's not chaotic. If you come into a messy bed, it's always chaotic. It's feng shui tells you that. But metaphysically, it looks chaotic, right? The bed's not made because we know a bed is a bed. And when it's made, it looks one way. It's comfortable to the mind. When you see it unmade and dirty or crackers in it, you know that feeling. So get up, just be grateful that you're alive. Try to have the best day possible. Make that bed, because when it all comes down to the last bit, when you go to sleep, man, you made your bed for the day. That was the win. That was the first win. You won for the day.
Yeah.
So I try to use that as a military thing, but it works. It does.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to be grateful for, man. Like, obviously, I'm in a new state, in a new place, and I'm in the same state, but feeling like this swirl of the last, July to now has been good and challenging, and I'm feeling like I'm up for the challenge. So it's fun to like just. I know we've been texting for a little while, or maybe since the beginning of the year. I don't know. I don't know when we reconnected, but it's
Off
probably
and on since the beginning of the year.
Yeah, man. So I'm sorry it takes so long to get it together here, but no, man, it's really good to talk to you and just man to man, face to face. Thank you for staying up late.
Oh, you're welcome. No, it's Friday night, man. This is what I got nothing to do. I'm hanging out on a podcast with my friends, just streaming me building models, or I'm up reading a book, hanging out, dude. I don't go out at night. Once in a while, I go out with my wife, but
Oh, okay. Well, all right. I mean, I do the same like three things all the time. I said Lordsburg and working a lot now, so it feels like there's just trying to focus on that. And 5K next Saturday, so I need to be going to the gym tomorrow for sure.
That's
but
cool, because I'm doing a
cool.
5K too for the Moffitt organization here in Florida.
Oh, cool.
That's gonna be cool.
Are you a runner? Do you like to run?
No, I don't. I hate it with a passion, but I'm going. I'm volunteering with my wife for her company to do it, so I'm going to go and put in the steps. But God, I don't. I'd rather.
I got you. A lot of people don't. Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing hockey, and I started playing again March 2022. But
I saw that. I saw a lot of photos of you.
Yeah, I have put it on Instagram. But man, I've been slacking, and me and my buddy go. Anyway, I feel like I'm not a hockey player right now. Let's just say that, right? You're like, if you haven't played in 6 months, you're not a hockey player.
So I bet. I'm sure it's super demanding.
Whatever the sport is, you're like, when you tell people, back in the day, I was the basketball guy. And it's like, oh, when was the last time you went to like 24-hour fitness and did a pickup game? You're like, oh, I don't know, a year ago. It's like, dude, your identity is in
the swimming.
You play. Yeah. Oh, swimming's great, dude. But yeah, do you guys stream the podcast?
We do. We use Restream.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. I think I used StreamYard a couple of episodes I did on here. And one time I messed it up. So
we use Restream, and then it connects to our Facebooks, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, I think.
Okay, yeah, you can connect it to a bunch of different things. Maybe LinkedIn sometimes, or I don't know. Yeah. That's cool.
That's all it is. We're just continue to show up and just be positive, talk about whatever we're working on personally, and just highlight our sponsors and try to get other guests. So it's like, if you'd like, I was like, I'd like to invite you to join me on my show, because I do one.
Yeah, I love that.
Hang out and we'll talk about some personal hobby stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I know. I feel like the podcast to me has kind of been a hobby, but I'm thinking like I've always enjoyed writing, and then maybe I need to get some new hobbies too. And obviously my body and my exercise, I feel like, especially with this job, of like, I feel like I need to step it up. I feel like that to just be able to be more present than I have been, what I've experienced so far. So, dude, I would love that, man. I haven't done a podcast in a while. I don't think I've done anything this year. Like, I haven't really been trying to do that as much, but I know that I'm still on some of the Facebook groups, and then people are always looking for like, tell us your story, come on our podcast, And I'm like,
I was gonna say that's exactly how we met.
Yeah, man. No, it's great. Well, I mean, I think it's cool because like I could go back and listen to stuff I did kind of as we've been talking here, right? Like, oh, that's what I was saying then, and that's what I was doing then. And then sometimes I think you want to like have a little bit of a gap so you can go do the things that then you put into the story, right? It's
Yes, it's
kind
like,
of like,
yeah,
and you don't, it doesn't always have to be that maybe dramatic, like, oh,
right,
I'm going to go in the woods for 2 years and then I'll come back. It's like, well, that probably
right.
isn't going to work, but like signed a 1 year lease, so probably not. But like, right, but sometimes there is that withdrawal, like the hero's journey, right? Like, I grew up in church, so there's always a story about like Paul the apostle, right? He like
Yeah,
gets blinded by the light and then he goes away. People probably don't even realize this. Like he goes to the desert for like 14 years, right? And then he comes back. And so what you read about is like like where he was at after that. You don't really read about like what was this guy doing
yeah.
for
What was he
15 years?
doing there?
I mean, it's probably out there, right? But there's always that story of like the Batman Begins or something, right? Everybody goes in a cave and like
Yep,
when they come
yep,
out, and we see them when they come out of the caves. But it's
yep.
like, what So anyway, there's a part of me that feels a little bit like I don't, I want to get some new experiences. So I'm definitely willing to go on your podcast the way I am right now. Totally fine. But I just
Absolutely.
mean like someday, maybe a few years from now, I'll have another round of like, hey, have me on your podcast, and I can have some new things to talk about. So. But dude, thank you for
Yeah.
doing this, man. I mean,
Oh,
I'm
you're
just hanging
welcome.
out on a Friday night too. Thursday, Friday, Saturdays are my off days now, and so I'm just
Okay.
kind of like trying to still figure out all the things I want to do on my off day or whatever. Trying to rest and whatever.
Do you have
So,
a do you have a TikTok handle or anything?
well, I do have a TikTok. I haven't really been posting on there. I'm on Instagram. Are you on Instagram? No.
Yeah, you can find me at
Oh,
the
you
Model
are?
Rocketeer.
Oh, I think I started following you. It's just
Yeah, I think so too.
Jared
Only
Deal.
because if you have live status on your TikTok, dude, we can link up and we can chit chat, there
Okay.
and
I can
push
figure that
traffic in
out.
different
I think I
directions.
took the app off my phone, but I can like figure that out. Or I have a YouTube channel too that
Okay.
I put a lot of more recently. Not when you and I did the podcast. I've done this where I'll probably take this video and put it on YouTube. You're okay, cool with that?
Because the first one was just audio, wasn't it?
Yeah,
No,
it
it was
was.
it
I
was video
used
too.
Zoom, but I didn't tell people I was like I didn't have my louder now background. I totally did it all amateur, and it's fine. Some of the conversations I would like to go back and do again and be like, hey, let's because the YouTube is most people that have a podcast, I think, put stuff on YouTube. It's just like seems just common sense. Like everybody's
Yeah.
on YouTube, man. It's like Google. So
Yep. It
um
is.
yeah, email me, text me. I'll find I think it's just Louder Now podcast is my TikTok, but I haven't really been posting on there, but I know that's a spot to be.
Right on. But
Well,
honestly, I'll look for you or whatever. But if we can come up with something, I'll shout you out. See if we can boost you to get to live status if you don't have it already, because it just comes in handy. Sit back and just kick back, man. People are doom scrolling. Like you said, doom scrolling, and they
and they
find some
just come
people talking
across
about some
it.
shit, dude. Dude,
Okay,
we're
and
just,
you do
we're
it
just
Friday nights?
yeah,
Oh, you do. Okay, yeah, that's what you said. You just got done doing. So
yeah,
Friday, yeah,
yep.
I can do Friday nights for sure. So
But I run a Wednesday night show, and it's called What's in the Hanger, and it's based on what is it I'm working on,
okay,
and asking others, hey, what are you working on? But we can do, hey, it's a special mental health, what's in the hanger. It's like what do you do to help keep your mental health at its highest, or what can you suggest to some people that might be questioning their mental health, that they want to make some changes in their life, but they don't want to do drastic things, because some people don't know how to express that to others, right? There's feedback when someone's like, hey, I need to maybe get healthy in my mind. Some people don't want to talk to people about that because there's a repercussion. People are like, what, you think you're crazy?
yeah,
Dude,
yeah,
we've been there. But the point
yeah,
is, when they're feeling that, it's like, hey, this is what you need to do. If you're feeling this is what you go do. These are your steps. This is how you begin that journey, because then we're empowering them right off the rip to take their mental health seriously and use it. And if you need to ask questions or whatever, like I said, we'll ask and put that out there for them.
yeah, man. Dude, I would love that. Yeah, let me know. We'll set it up. And so many guests now. I feel like I could go back and ask. I've had a couple of people come back on, so you're not the only one, but it's
Awesome.
still, it has, maybe happened like 3 or 4 times now. So it's cool. Like, I feel like moving forward, I want to, do Carry Howell returns or
Oh
whatever,
yeah.
fill in the blank, whoever, and have them come back. And so I appreciate you, man. It's good to
Oh,
have
you're
you.
welcome, Jared. I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let you go, man, and have a good. You probably go to bed soon. I'm assuming, but have a good night, and like we'll be in touch, text, and we'll figure out what
Yep.
to do. So,
Man.
all right, man. I appreciate you.
I
Okay.
really love you. Thank
Peace
you.
from West Coast to East Coast. Okay. All right, man. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, loudernowpodcast.com is my new website. There's a link to make a donation. I would appreciate you can consider making a financial donation to the podcast. All of Carrie's info will be in the notes as well. And I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please email me with any feedback, jared.deal@gmail.com, and we'll see you next time.